It's really a delight to be here today. I really enjoy talking about this topic, and we're going to talk a little bit about leadership, not really go into great depths, but really talk about how do we influence other people, how do we negotiate, sell, deal with the politics in a lot of those environments. And so these are all very crucial topics that impact almost everybody who's trying to do projects. And the state of projects keeps improving, but still there's a lot of failures, and a lot of it can be based upon the people involved and the environments in which they're operating and having good sponsors. So a lot of what I'm trying to address here is to realize we're kind of looking at our career, and maybe there's a plateau in front of us, or we've got this portal into where we're going to go. And we kind of think it's status quo, same old, but we see off in the distance that there might be some better opportunities or some more exciting advancement opportunities, but kind of we got a wreck in our foreground. So what we want to try to do is to realize that a lot of professional people have been trained in the technical side of the profession. And after they've been working in their career for a while, it gets to the point that to realize you might be on this plateau. And that's when it maybe will dawn on people, I'm hopeful that we can stimulate that today, is to realize how you interact with people is going to make a difference. And I'm sure the fact that you're here today, that you want to make a difference in your career and in your organization. So let's see if we can help you do that. So you might have a mental block about where you're going, and that's stopping you in place here. Or you might have a round to it. Well, I might get around to it someday to kind of think about taking a course or learn more about negotiating. And, but I'm kind of busy right now. And but we really want to try to open up a treasure chest. How do you get the best things out of yourself? What are your natural talents? What are the things that are innate in yourself? And a lot of people, there's some maybe some skills that are really latent, and we want to try to stimulate those, see if we can bring the real unique you out to make you even more excellent. So what we want to try to do today in this session is to be able to focus on, I'll share with you a set of necessary skills that I believe are important to advance. We're going to try to say, can we create more excellence in your career? We're going to talk about the mindset, motivation, a little bit of environmental factors, and then the whole goal is that you can reap more benefits from what you're doing, because we do spend a lot of time, we don't have all that much time to make a difference in our organizations or in our lives. So we want to get around to it now and be able to address a lot of key things. Here's a little bit of my background. I worked at Hewlett-Packard for 22 years, and at that time, I teamed up with culture anthropologist, Dr. Robert J. Graham, and we wrote our book, Creating an Environment for Successful Projects. Later, Bob and I teamed up with Paul Dinsmore to write about creating the project office. And then Bob and I have done a second and a third edition just came out a couple of years ago about the environment. And then Alfonso Pizarro from Spain and I teamed up to really drill down into the role of project sponsors. So many surveys and ideas about success on projects has to do with the role of executive sponsors. And the state of sponsorship generally around the world is pretty dismal. So we wrote about project sponsorship, how to achieve excellence and management commitment for project success. And then Alfonso and I wanted to really get into the role of the complete project manager. So we'll highlight some of those areas today, and there's an accompanying toolkit that goes with that. So what's a secret to success? I don't know if it's really a secret, but sort of if you really kind of look at what is a secret code to advancement. And a couple of things are pretty simple. Make yourself more valuable. Okay, the things that you can offer, the things that you are thinking about, the things that you want to do, do them, and align with your organizational goals. You might have some things that you think need to be done, but how do they fit in with the strategy or the goals of an organization? And you want to be able to attract other people like yourselves. Because I know when I was at HP at a project management office at corporate, we connected with some people from 3M. We had a top-down support project office. 3M had a bottoms-up where they attracted a lot of people who were believing that project management could be done better, and they got together to try to make a difference and set up some training. So those are some things that you can do. And you want to really focus. Where? I'm going to suggest that the people make a difference. Dr. Bob's first book was Project Management as If People Mattered, right? And it really combined the technical and the behavioral approach. And that's what, in myself, I have an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering, but I worked on an MBA in management. And I've really used a lot more of that in my career, but I have a technical background, if you will, so I can work with technical people and worked with some very smart ones at HP. So the more that I focus on the people, the processes, and so forth, then I could really make contributions to that company. What is the definition of success? Well, did you get a scope, schedule, and resources? That might be basic, but really it varies in each organization. So one of the things I suggest to do is to identify definitions of success by stakeholder. I interview, that's what I like to do, is interview a lot of the key stakeholders and ask them, what's the one thing that you want from this project? And, they'll give you a lot of things, but pin them down to one because that tells you what's really important to them. And that's what makes a difference. You can tailor a lot of your work to meet what your stakeholders want, not just what your project's been done, because I've been given some project assignments that if I went with them the way they were assigned to me, I would have failed. But I took the time to find out what was really important, what was the real need, and altered the project to meet that, and we were successful. Okay? And the thing that I'll keep saying over and over again, the real way to create value is to integrate. And a lot of key skills, and I'll highlight some of those skills for you. And take the initiative. Be the one, if you see something that needs to be done in your organization. And I learned that very early in my career when I was in field installation supervisor for GE Medical, that we had a lot of fires we were putting out. And just like, wow, I thought we solved that fire last month. So I took the initiative to put processes in place. And as my career advanced and really had some very successful projects, they even got larger and larger. Essentially, I took the initiative to propose to the service manager that I coordinate all the projects for the whole organization. And our stats as a district went from near the bottom to up to the top by taking the initiative and focusing on really integrating all it takes to have successful projects. Where can you put a small effort and get a large impact? And the recipe for success is 2 L's and 2 M's. Leadership, learning, means, and motivation. If you have those 4 things and focus and make sure as a checklist that you have all of them, then you can be a lot closer to getting success on every single project. So your leadership. And if you haven't read Simon Sinek's book or seen his TED Talk on Start With Why, crucial, all right? Leadership is focusing on the why. Do you know why you're doing this project? If you're given a project and the sponsor just dumps it on you, keep asking why, okay? And the learning, that do we have the knowledge and the skills in place to do it? And then do we have all the means and necessary resources? And maybe you have all those 3, but people just aren't motivated to do it. Okay, so you have to try to reinforce some new behaviors that might be required if you're changing how you're operating in that organization. So there's a lot of tools available for each of these. But again, what the point I'm trying to say is behavior, which is often needs to change, will happen when all 4 factors are working together. So again, my advice to you is do a checklist to make sure, do you have them? Because I know I was given a new job, but if I didn't know how to do it or use that processes, I would struggle. And a lot of times, my career, I experienced where, yeah, we had so many projects going on, but we didn't resource any of them very fully, didn't have the means. So those are some things that you want to try to make sure all of those four factors are in place. And this is what there's a lot of talk about what's a manager and what's a leader. And a manager light a fire under people, but what do leaders do? They light a fire in people. Motivation is inherently internal. You can have a lot of external motivational factors, but the real powerful ones are when they come from internally. So what's the role? And I'm going to talk about being a complete project manager is where you embrace all of this. There are some times that you have to manage the project and go through the phases of the project life cycle. And there are other times you need to inspire and motivate people as a leader. So embrace all of it. Motivation. There is a phases of motivation. And this is what, as you look at that portal or your plateau, do you look at what are motivating factors for the people on your teams? So identify what their needs are. And many times it's as simple as asking them or observing them, paying attention. And then you want to kind of create drive within those people so that you can put them in a place where they're trying to do, and then select behavior that you want from them. And I remember working when I was hosting or chairing a conference for HP for all of our project managers. I was assigned a person to work with me, and I asked Linda, would you like to negotiate the contract with the hotel? And she said, well, I've never done that before. And that's fine. I said, well, I'll coach you along the way. And little did I know what giant I unleashed in her. She just rose to the task. She'd never done it before, but she was very capable and just made my job easier and made the project even that much more successful by her contribution. So I was able to create a drive, understand what she likes to focus on, a lot of details. I could do the big picture. She could handle the details. Okay. So the behavior was there and we could perform the task and keep getting feedback. If people aren't getting what they need, pay attention and listen to them and then reassess. It might change over time. And people might need to do different things somewhere down the line so you can kind of reassess where it's at. So inner motivation, paying attention, seeking the clues. There's a lot of things you can observe from people and pay attention to those. Leading starts with yourself. And a lot of it is decision making. A lot of times people will look to the leader to make a decision, or if you're at a team meeting, and sometimes you need to step up and make a decision, but you don't know what's the right decision. Well, try to make it as best you can, but make a decision. But also put the caveat, as we get more information and proceed along this project, we might need to change. So that's one of the things that successful people have done to realize we're going to decide we're going to go this path, and if we need to alter it or modify it, we will do so. That's a thing that you can say, I'll do those. I'll do those things. And managing yourself by placing a priority on understanding and listening to, using appreciative inquiry to understand what people do well and listen to people, active listening. Okay. Be the example. People are always watching you as the leader, if that's your role, or even as a team member. Okay. And a positive attitude. And that motivation slide, I mentioned Alfonso's book on the influential project manager, and Today is a Good Day. Those are wonderful books where he focuses on attitude, and especially in the context of doing projects. And he shares a lot of his stories. So this is, again, positive attitude is sort of a position where you're at. You might even have some bad days, right? Okay. And that doesn't mean you can't still have a positive attitude. We all We'll have some moods we can go through, and we have to be careful that we don't overshadow it. And I know there's a couple times in my career that I started feeling negative, and I realized it's time for me to move on. I don't want to be the bad apple in the barrel that infects the whole organization. So I moved on, and I made some wonderful changes from that so I could keep that positive attitude in place and realize that, we only have a limited time in our work, and people who are just putting in their time to retirement said, well, that's a shame. Find something that you love, follow your bliss, and be in a place where a positive attitude can prevail. Cultivate relationships up, across, and down the organization, right? There's a lot of times that people don't think that they need to manage up the organization, but I think you do. That's what's going to be important for your success. You might have to work with colleagues in other organizations. Reach out, be the outreach for things beyond your project. Understand what else is happening in the organization. And if you have direct report to people who are working with you on your project, you want to be able to understand all of them, that you can cultivate relationships that are very personal. That's what's going to make a difference. What are leadership qualities that you have observed that made a difference in your life? And I do this with my students in the graduate courses at the university, especially when it's for a grade. Well, I require that they write an essay. And this is almost the highlight of the course, where people have talked about somebody, whether it's a coach, a parent, a child. I think even one time somebody picked a horse. And what did they do? What leadership qualities did they emulate or demonstrate? And tell the story about what they did that made an impact on you. And people love reading those stories. Storytelling is a huge skill that makes a difference in being influential as a leader. Be teachable, be curious, constantly learning, be in a flexible approach to leadership. There's no one style as a leader. There are many, and you might want to vary it depending upon the situation. So the best that you know yourself, believe in yourself, believe that what you're doing is right. Because I've in my career been a lot of times where getting resistance or people, aren't sure that this is the right thing to do, but I know it is. I know that the things that I'm sharing or proposing or putting in place, they're grounded in experience and good practice, leading practices, best practices, maybe even innovative practices, but I know that they're solid. And even though some people don't quite get it, portfolio management is an example. A lot of people, there's a lot of techniques you can use for that. So people say, I don't quite understand it. I say, well, let's just try it. And as they get into it, they understand how it works. And I need to be that constant support and believe in what I'm doing and being able to take care of myself, be able to then focus with others, help educate them, help them learn, help them see things differently. We don't have time to really go through a thorough approach to what are some theories of leadership, so I just wanted to share that there are some various ones, whether it's based upon each transaction or in the situation. Maybe there's some universal principles. Pareto optimality means, both people and the task, which do you focus on? Well, you try to find the balance between them. Transformational is where you've got a situation where there's a lot of failures going on. We need to change how we do our projects and put some processes in place. It needs a transformational leader. A contingent is based upon what's going on in the situation. Charismatic is probably the harder one to do in terms of maybe it's there or not. But I think the core one that really is great, and Daniel Goldman wrote about it in Primal Leadership, is the emotional bonding that you get with people. So what that means is, develop your emotional competence. Share your emotions, share what you're feeling. Sometimes it might be negative, so you have to couch that in a positive way. But, the primal job of leadership is emotional. And that's one theory that you want to be able to do. Another example is McClelland's motivational theories, whether it's your affiliation with other people, your need for power and authority. There's a lot of people, especially in politics, that obviously they're motivated by power. We're seeing that in the world situation right now. And I think the thing that applies for me personally is I'm motivated by achievement. I want to achieve things. I want to be creative and be able to achieve things. If I'm given a project, I want to make sure every project I do is successful. And if I make a commitment, I will honor that commitment so I can achieve whatever it is we're trying to do. So this is for me a personal motivational factor, but other people are different. Here's some other ways that you can understand what people need if you're going to lead them. Okay, so there's some definition of what the drives are for each of those in place there, and they do vary by individual. Mindset. Do you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? A fixed mindset is this is the way we do it. We've always done it this way. We're going to do it the same way, and we're not going to embrace something different. Not necessarily a good recipe, but a growth mindset is where you can learn new things, and you're constantly learning. You're constantly seeing, is there another way that we can do it in place there? And the mindset, I think, if we look at a pyramid here, is really what is going to be your superpower. Because a lot of things, much like Wonder Woman, has these superpowers. Your superpower is your mindset in many cases, how you think about things, that you're open and other alternatives. What is your mindset towards negotiations, towards sales, towards politics, towards change, towards conflict? All of these things are a state of mind that, if we feel, well, I don't like negotiating, because you've been a victim, maybe, it's a win-lose. Well, a mindset of win-win and developing those skills is going to be super important, and it will be a lifelong career enhancement. So once you have the mindset to kind of say, here's all the things that I need to do to embrace, then you can say, okay, what are the skills that go along with that? And then, okay, maybe there are some tools that can do it in place here. But the tool set and the skills, I think it's almost subservient to kind of having that mindset. Because if you have a mindset that we can do this, I don't know how, but we can do it, you'll find a way. That's your superpower. This is what Alfonso and I have put together as an organic approach to being a complete project manager. And a lot of times we talk about, are you complete or incomplete? Incomplete means you're maybe lacking skills, or maybe you're having new situations, you don't know how to handle them. You have conflict happening and you don't have it in place here. So you're incomplete, and most of it are. I view myself being incomplete because I'm always wanting to expand and do things more, do things better. So I want to keep evolving. So part of this organic approach, we talk about a molecule. Now, if you have a multivitamin and it has everything, and it's this huge pill, and you have to take 4 of them a day, but then you get an infection and you go get a prescription for an antibiotic, and it's this tiny little pill. And you wonder, how can that be so potent? I asked my chemical colleagues about that, and they said it's molecular complexity. How you put more molecules together that make it more potent. And that's the analogy we use in using this molecule here. We're saying these are 13 areas that we think if you bring that into the molecule that is you, this is going to make you more complete. So I will highlight a few of those for you and be able to kind of share with you a little bit more what they mean. One of the things you can do, and everything I try to do with all of these areas, is to do an assessment. And I'll share with you 2 or 3 assessment tools. These are all available on my website, by the way. You can download them for free. There's no charge on them. And this is the simple assessment of your evaluation. When I'm doing my seminars for PMI, I have people do this as an exercise at their table, and then they share their spider diagram of how they go through each of these skills. And you can see some of them are going to be high and some will be low. And those will tell you where your strengths are. You want to leverage those strengths and then look for some development opportunities with them. So part of it then is to assess where you are now so that you can think, where do I want to be when I cross over that plateau and get to the mountains that are off in the distance? Okay, so you can see what all those areas are. So let me just kind of share with you a highlight of one of those skills called negotiating. When I ask people in a seminar, how many of you like negotiating or taken a negotiating course or read a book? And probably there's only 2 or 3 of us with their hands up. So a lot of people have a negative attitude towards negotiating. Negotiating is fun, it's powerful, it's effective, and it's a lifelong skill. I think it was probably 30 years ago I took a negotiating course, and it changed my life. Used it every day since. You use it with colleagues, you use it with spouses, with children or colleagues, or you use it with sponsors or team members. When you're negotiating for resources for your project, okay, the better you are as a negotiating person, the more powerful you're going to be. So you can see here's 10 rules, starts with being patient, and that's where probably so many people lose out. They don't like it. Take the example of buying a car, whether new or used. They said, I don't like all that haggling. Hey, haggling is fun. It's going to get you $2,000, $3,000 better deal, but you might have to be patient, put the time in, and be positive, because nobody likes to work with somebody who's negative and is demanding. Okay, even in a store or with clerks or so forth. Gather as much information as you can about what the other side. Know as much information as you can about the other party in this negotiation. Trial balloons that you float are, what if? What if we did this, but only did a subset? Would that be acceptable? You're not making a commitment, but you're just testing the water of what's the possibilities. Know your status. Are you a buyer or are you a seller? Know your opening offer. What is it that you're willing to pay? But don't go to the extreme, because then you have no room to negotiate. Okay, limit your authority. What this is called is institutionalizing patience, where what you really want to try to do is to say, let's go back to the car dealer. Once you think you have a deal, what do? Well, let me go check with the sales manager. Now, I don't know if they actually talk or not, but they come back and they'll say, well, I got most of this for you, but we didn't get this, right? That's a script. The more you understand that and know it and stand your ground and realize that, if your spouse isn't there, you can do the same thing. You say, well, looks like a good deal, but I have to go check with my other. And these are some things where you're limiting your authority. And know your bottom line. Say you really want this application that this vendor is supplying for you, but you only have a $10,000 budget and they want $12,000. Then you have to really know, is it that good that I have to go get more funds, or maybe do I need to walk away? This is important to know that. Just like your opening offer and your bottom line, these things go. What's the limits below and above, whether you're the buyer or the seller in a negotiating? The more you're prepared, the better off you're going to be. And never reward intimidation tactics. Take it or leave it. Be prepared to leave it. Stand up or cool off or take a time out. Or if somebody's really trying to intimidate you, if you've made some concessions, you might want to just say, well, you start withdrawing those concessions. You don't want to give in to intimidation and let the other side have that power over you, because you deserve to be a good player in this negotiation. So these are all some highlights of negotiating. There's some other skills that I think are in place. Influence skills. If you haven't read Robert Cialdini's work on influence, wonderful material. And he talks about these 6 areas of skills that what you share through reciprocity with others, the consistency or social validation. What do other people think is the right way to do things, or how have they done something? If you're proposing a new way of doing it, they can see somebody that they respect, they can help validate it for you. Liking, you want to again be positive so people will want to work with you. And you might not have a lot of direct authority, but you can use referent authority or invoke authority in place there. And scarcity is realize, maybe we've never done project management well in this organization, but we're going to be in place here. And it's a rare thing. We want to try to improve it within our organization. Selling skills. Again, a lot of people don't like sales, but we all are salespeople in the sense when you're trying to sell an idea, you're trying to sell your sponsor on supporting this project or get somebody to want to work with you. So there's a lot of aspects of the sales process that are very important. And then politics. Yeah, we all love politics, right? Well, have you ever put a political plan in place? And it really incorporates a lot of the things that we've already been talking about. The fact that you can go through and be able to talk about a lot of things and deal with through the political arena. Every organization has politics in place, okay? You can never avoid it. You don't want to be a victim of the politics. So what we want you to do is be a skilled political player. And a political plan, again, I have a template for that can be very helpful as a way to put through it. Okay? Influence without authority. Colin and Bradford had a wonderful book. And how do you influence without authority? Because you typically do need to influence other people, but typically you probably don't have authority. So the process is to clarify your mission and goals. What is it we're trying to do? Who are the people who are influential in your organization? Who could say no? Who is on your side? Assume everybody's an ally, but you're going to have opponents, comrades, and the naysayers. So you need to identify who's with you, who isn't, and be able to address them. You want to diagnose what's important to these people. If these people are opposing your plan, what's important to them? What are their concerns, their goals, the things that the style, what they need to hear from you, because you might need to vary what you sell them on, okay, and what do they need? Again, this is part of motivation. And then assess what do you have relative to their needs. You have many, many currencies of exchange. This is reciprocity. And the book actually has tables and tables of them. Sometimes it's a simple thank you and letter or so forth. And kind of one of the things is, it's not important that what you get and what you receive are equal. The point is, both happen. Give, receive. And if you're always giving but never receive, you're going to feel bad, okay? But you need to receive something, and you need to give something to get that. So realize that's part of nature, if you will. Diagnose your relationship with the other people. Again, whether they're on your side or against you, and then make an exchange and go through the reciprocity. So it's a very straightforward process. It's not hard to implement once you kind of realize you need to do all the steps, right? Okay. Part of the sales process, who are you dealing with? Who are the buyers, if you will, that might be interested in your project, your outcome, your idea? There are technical buyers. These are people who can make the recommendation, but they don't have the money. You have to find the economic buyer who can spend the money. You also have qualified buyers. These are people who expressed interest. And if nobody has ever expressed an interest and so forth, and you're trying to sell them on your idea, it's going to be a tough one. You have to realize, I need to go to the qualified buyers. There's also a thing we can look at, a strategic buyer. And this is the ultimate user. A lot of times, let's say you're dealing with the procurement and they're buying something for their organization, but who are the end user? Who are the people? Maybe they're they're trying to get something in place for the CEO or for executives or leaders in the organization. What do those people want? Procurement may not know all of that and maybe thinking that they do, but you have to sometimes push past that and find out who really is the strategic buyer for your idea or your product or service. There might be skeptics, not interested. If you find out who these are, don't waste your time on them. They may never come around to your idea, so you want to be careful if there are some skepticals. So the advice, know who you're dealing with, giving you some ways to categorize, if you will, and it will change. People might change during the course of negotiation where they are on these scales, but it's important that you sell to all levels. I've seen that on some big deals where they only work with the technical buyer and forget to go to the economic buyer. And that can be disastrous if you don't truly get to the economic buyer or even the strategic buyer. Okay. Questions are a great skill for you as you're trying to lead up, across, and down the organization. The more you can ask questions to engage them, get them thinking about it. A lot of times the sales process, people just go in right away to try to talk about the features, but you need to engage them first. Build the rapport, discover their needs through your questions, agree what the needs are. Use paraphrasing or active listening to kind of say, do you truly understand what their needs are? And that way you get rapport sometimes because you can really be able to describe it very well. A lot of times when I come in on a consulting engagement, I always try to spend time up front to interview cross-section of people and so forth to find out what the real needs are. And then in my opening, I can share those. And people will say, have you been reading our emails? You seem to know a lot about us. Okay, good. You're on the right track then. So your questions can help you control the conversation. When somebody brings something which might be an objection, you can kind of say, well, how important is that? How often does it come up? These are some things that you can kind of control it and move it away from that mindset and ask, well, would you like to think of an alternate way that can happen? And then you can manage the entire sales cycle through your questions. All right. Best questions, what, why, how, but also open-ended. In other words, yes, no answers don't give you a lot of information. You want to be able to kind of say, well, how has impacted the project in the past? Why did those projects not get the results you wanted? Those open-ended questions can help you really understand, I think I have a solution for them. Here's the basics of the sales process, the FBAC, okay? And features are the specific deliverables that your project can deliver. But if those features are delivered, what benefits will be achieved by them, okay? If we can put this process in place, we can get more done in less time. We can get more done with fewer people. Those are some benefits. But then you might ask, so what? The next one is to say, what advantage does that give you if those benefits are achieved? We can get more business. We can be more competitive. How is the outcome? A lot of your features are going to be outputs, but the advantages are the outcomes, the business benefit or business achievement that will happen. Those are advantages that you want to be able to focus on. And then finally, you want to go for the closing. Ask for an explicit commitment, whether it's buying a product or even to support a plan. You want to get a commitment because people are almost hardwired. Part of your influence skills is to realize if we make a commitment, we are almost hardwired as people to fulfill that if we committed to it. But if we never made the commitment, sometimes, we may not go for it. We may not fulfill and make our deliverables happen. Now, they don't necessarily have to be in this order. Sometimes you might want to reverse the order of advantages, benefits, or a lot of times I've seen a lot of times where They talk about the benefits. We have a solution that will give you all these great benefits. Okay, I'm interested, but there's no clue as to what it is. Okay, so I've seen that in some brochures. Is this a application? Is this a product? What is it? Is it in my price range? So that's where the features are important. Once you kind of get the benefits and the advantages kind of understood and people interested, make sure that they realize the features. Or you may have to start with the features. If this is what we can have, would you then be interested in pursuing it? So that's really a highlight of the sales process. The other thing that I'm talking about is a couple of things about your environment and your sponsorship. Okay, in the book that Dr. Bob and I did, Create an Environment for Successful Projects, we put together 10 pieces of a puzzle that create an environment for successful projects. And you can see all those pieces there. And it's really, you're leading the change, you're linking, you have a portfolio process, you got core teams, you got an organizational structure, you've got influence from upper managers, you've got a project office or project management initiative, you create a learning organization, you have the information system, and oh yeah, number 7 there, lower right corner, select and develop project managers. That's important, but many organizations, that's all they do. And they forget all these other pieces. And a lot of times the first piece and the second piece is many times if you're trying to improve project management in your organization, you really have to kind of do executives understand what project management is. Try to sell them and train them first before a wholesale or large scale approach to developing and sharing project managers, and be able to have ways that project managers can constantly improve, that they can share best practices among themselves. So that's the environment. And the other one is project sponsorship. Again, I said this state is kind of dismal, and we have a step-by-step process to understand, define what sponsorship is, that we sustain it. Many sponsors will start out in the beginning of an organization of a project, but not support it throughout. And so we focus on sustaining it and all the way up to the leading it and developing sponsors and what's the criteria and how do they keep going. So the idea is creating excellence in project sponsorship is something that you may need to embrace in your organization. Do you have a sponsor for each of your projects? So each of these, we have some tools that you can help assess where you're at. This is the short version of the assessment called EASY, E-A-S-I. Again, this is available from my website, that you can go through and assess where you're at in each of these 10 pieces of the puzzle. From that, we can do a benchmark report. In fact, you can actually submit your data to me, and I can send you back survey results that we can have some parallel lines to each of these. How does your organization compare? There's a lot of room for improvement in most every organization. And a lot of individuals or people kind of score high on some of the ones near the top. But as you get towards the bottom, a learning organization and the culture and the project office, they fall off. So it's like, yeah, we've got some stars, some key players, but it's not pervasive across the organization. Maybe we need to do something to try to share more of that. What you might want to think about as a checklist item for your organization, is it toxic or is it green? Toxic might be a lot of mistrust, a lot of failures, we don't communicate, the reporting requirements are very burdensome, metrics aren't very good, cutthroat tactics in the politics, and a lot of negative practices. Whereas you get a green environment, you get a shared vision. Okay, that's very important for every project and organization and every team to have a vision that they share. Do you have a vision? Do you have a sense of purpose? My purpose as an individual is to change thinking to help people create environments for successful projects. That gives me a purpose to sustain me through whatever I'm doing, whether it's when I was working for HP, whether it's working on my own. It's such that I can say every day, how am I fulfilling that purpose? It's independent of what's going on around me, or even organizational reorganizations, right? Your purpose is strong. Does the team have a purpose? Is there trust among all the people working together? Do we cooperate versus do we compete? And people fully communicate in a very green environment. We have respect, creativity, influence. These are what you want to say. Where do you assess your organization on either of these sides? You might have some on one side, some on the other. So it's important to kind of realize that the environment in which you're operating has a huge impact on how successful you can be. I've seen equally skilled project managers, one from a very green environment, another one in a very toxic environment. I can predict that those people in the green environment can accomplish far more in the time frame than those in the toxic environment, which may have failures or have to cut down and only have a partial success. Okay, so you have to realize what your environment is and tailor your expectations accordingly and try to shift or change thinking so that people can have a more green environment. And of course, when I talk toxic and green, I'm not talking about the physical environment. I'm talking about the interaction among people, because people matter. Right? So here's the assessment tool for your sponsor. And again, you can go through this one. You can get this from our website. Is that you can go through and be able to assess at your sponsor, and you can have your sponsor also do it and compare what you're doing. And hopefully, you give them our book that if they score bad, and then talk about it. Managing up the organization means that you train your sponsor, you educate your sponsor, you support your sponsor. When I was at the project management initiative at HP, our manager, although he's good at managing and leading, didn't really have a lot of experience in project management, whereas I did, my colleagues did. So a lot of the role was to educate him on what we're doing, because sometimes he didn't understand. I had to sell him on why we needed to do this and how. And we're able to be successful in doing that. Okay. So let's talk about politics. The word politics, the word poly meaning many, the word ticks meaning blood-sucking parasites. That's why a lot of us don't embrace the politics. And even Einstein, as brilliant as he was more difficult than physics. Early in my career, I got this in evaluation at the end of the day. Might be okay for people whose jobs are project manager and leadership. Well, it was. It's tough to put up with, recognize, lead, or tamper politically oriented people at my level, because we're the people who actually do measurable work. I think it'd be better to teach a course to politically minded on how to be less politically minded. Can you believe that? I only saw this at the end of the day, so I wasn't have a chance to help this person change thinking, because it's not going to happen. Okay, teaching people to be more political minded, a lot of them are motivated by those politics, okay, and their power. So what we have to do is to focus on ourselves and try to be a leader in managing through many of these type of environments. And what it is that's going to help us be effective in that case is that, are we authentic? Okay, that we say what we believe, we act with integrity, we do what we said. I'll talk a little bit more about those too. Accountability is a key word. And this is a technique or practice you can do, is at the beginning of your project, ask each one of your team members, will you be accountable for this project to be successful? You don't have to have authority to ask that question. You're asking for an explicit commitment that you're going to be accountable. And what accountable means is that if you see something that's not right, you do something about it, regardless of if it's your job or not. Okay, not my job goes away because I committed to be accountable that something's not right. It's up to me to do something about it. Believe me, if you get people to embrace this practice, it will change behavior. Very simple to do, very powerful in its effect. As you become a more complete project manager, we have a warning. You know, enhance self-esteem, greater opportunities, optimize results, increase your satisfaction. Are you ready? All right. This is what I'm trying to share. This is kind of my overall theme for what I'm trying to cover and share with you here today is the fact that you can become more complete by embracing them. Here's in essence of a political plan. There's two slides here. First one is really assessment of your environment. What type of organization do you have? What are your processes in place? What's the political jungle? We use the idea of a jungle, a lot of animal traits, and how can we relate them to people? Tigers are people at the top of the organization. Lions might be those in general management and so forth, or marketing. And the bears might be your technical professionals. So, and you might have snakes who have a lot of venomous attacks. So you kind of say, well, what are we facing here? Because we're invading their jungle. And when you're invading a jungle, a lot of times they're going to react, right? They're going to fight you, okay? And so this is what you want to be able to kind of know what you're up against. Assess your stakeholders. Are they assigned? Do we have sponsors doing their things? Do people understand the values of project management? And then what are the issues that we're up against? And too many projects is an epidemic. It's almost everywhere. And by doing fewer projects at a time and really getting all the means and resources fully staffed, over time, more projects get done. Fewer projects at a time, more projects get done over time. Okay, so look at some issues, do people not understand? Are we missing things? But this is page 1, where it really talks about your assessment. Page 2, this is what you're going to do about it. What's my approach? I need to get the tigers involved, those upper managers. I need to interview them, assess them, and sell them. I need to harness the lions to really work together. The bears will continue to perform as long as we do not disturb them with all these templates and details and so forth, but we need to realize, they're focused on their technical work and we need to honor that. What's my strategic response? Okay, I'm going to suggest a small project office. That's what I did early in my career out in the field. When I had all these problems, I suggested that what today we would have called a project office, focus on all the projects, not do all the service calls, but just focus on the installations of this equipment. I need to point out consequences in the market. Consequences are a good technique of people realizing what failures could mean for the organization. And open approach to all issues, free flow of information. A lot of people aren't getting things done. Okay, so you can just put up a simple chart, checklist each week or deliverables, what's been done. And somebody might come to you and say, I don't like that because, it's kind of showing that I'm behind time. I said, hey, I'm just the journalist here. I'm just the reporter. You're in charge of, how you look in the chart. Just get your work done. And, it's a simple way to get people to realize, my peer pressure, is going to be there if it's visible. They'll make it visible. Action plan. This is where the rubber meets the road. Okay. Your action might interview people, put a proposal in place, line up upper management, define the project sponsor role, conduct training for new sponsors, right? They may never have had any idea what their role should be. Excellence in project sponsorship, select strategic efforts, really help put a portfolio management process in place, even a project office, and go for small wins. Don't try to go for something that does everything, but earn the right to expand your approach, your project office, whatever, and get explicit commitments from all the people, and realize that the more I'm authentic and act with integrity, it's going to make a difference in what's going on. Okay, focus on creating value. Not just producing value, but creating new value. Okay, and people have a choice of what they're doing because you often don't have direct authority reports, but you can influence them. And people probably have multiple tasks going on. How do you get them to want to work on your project? Okay, so how do you get them to choose to make the work that they committed to you to do top priority? Okay, this question is super powerful. And what you want to be able to do is really be able to identify proven, repeatable steps to answer that question. And there's no one answer to the question. How do you get people to want to work with you? One answer is it's more fun. We're going to use a good, rigorous process, but it's going to be flexible. It's going to meet the needs that you're trying to do. It's going to introduce you to new technology. There's a few examples, right? So people want to keep growing. Most people do, if you look at their motivation. So what's the proven tools and methods that can help them put it in place there? And what you want to do is discover what are some new ways to manifest career-enhancing approaches. How will this project advance them in their career? And this is something when they know that you are interested in that and interested in developing them, it's going to help them want to work with you. Okay? So I mentioned these two words, authenticity and integrity. When you say what you believe is when you're authentic. And I've seen some middle managers who have been given some directive from above to say something, and you kind of know that they don't agree with it. But if they say it, they're not being authentic. And people, we have, crap detectors, right? We realize when somebody's not being authentic. And I saw that one time. We had one CEO that said we shouldn't measure ourselves based on our own metrics. We should base it compared to our competitors. Now, I know that David Packard would never make that statement because David Packard realized if you're measuring yourself on your competitors, you're looking at their taillights. He wanted to be out in front. But a middle manager was passing this along, and I even questioned him on it. Do you believe that? I said, well, not really, but that's what we've been told to say. And, he lost it there. Okay, I've seen another manager who really said, we've been asked to focus on this. I'm not sure that I think that's the right thing to do, but that we've been asked to do that. So let's give it a try. That is an authentic approach. You're doing your duty, but you're also being real in how you think about it. Act on what you say. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. And that's what I pride myself as a project manager. If I made a commitment for a deliverable, I always deliver on that. If I can't make it on time, I'll work with my person to adjust it as need be. But I have integrity in all what I'm doing. And we need to have integrity from our leaders at all levels, whether it's in government, in industry, nonprofit, whatever. Integrity is a huge value. Being authentic integrity with Dr. Bob in our Creating Environment book, we said those are the two things that we've seen make a difference between successful leaders and those who are not. Now, integrity crime is where you say one thing and you do something different. I was at a meeting where we were supposed to come together and talk about our strategy. Well, at the beginning of the meeting, the person said, let's work on this other task. Well, it turns out this task given to him by his manager, and he said, well, I've got my team together, I'll get them to do it for me. That was an integrity crime. And our team went from high performing, it's like, taking a pin to a balloon and popping it. It was just never the same. So that's an integrity crime. Not going to send you to jail, but it will really suck the energy right out of a team. So involve team members in putting things together. That's how you get them to embrace change. Foster an environment where people succeed. They learn, they operate in trusting, open environment. Again, that trust word is huge, okay? So another secret to success, your project office of one, all right? This is where you don't have to get approval for do it, but you have a clear vision. You do a set of priorities. You apply the secrets in place, all right? You integrate data, knowledge, wisdom, everything in place with the people. You implement the priorities, all right? Characteristics of a POO, all right, is that People look to you for direction. You need to manage the change. You negotiate. You sell. You season work on important, urgent assignments that possibly require deep analysis. They're broad. They're complex. They're opportunities. Okay. I'm one that anytime I'm in a maintenance role, reactive, not my thing. I like to pioneer. So I like to invent new processes in place here. That's what motivates me. That's where I can make a contribution to other people. Okay. A need exists to take charge, work with others, to integrate both the technical, the behavioral aspects, the intellect, the emotion, the head and the heart. You're curious, you're learning. You apply the essence. What is your essence as an individual, but the essence of a project office, but not necessarily the structure. Because you have the knowledge, you have the enhanced people skills, you have the experience that you put to place. You're able and ready. Okay, that's what I love to do now, that I can train, educate, consult, and I don't execute as many projects, but I'm more of the consultant. I can lead a change effort. The idea is to create extraordinary results, not just average. Average people can get extraordinary results when you embrace all these things that I'm trying to make clear today about being more complete, that you can have valued, optimized outcomes. You apply yourself not to contrived or imagine needs to put in place or arbitrary deadlines, but you real work. You focus on value-added activities. Okay, you might have a case where people see things differently. There's a lot of conflict. It's inevitable. Develop your conflict skills. You want control of results. And people say they want results, but you look at their actions, it's obvious they want control. So I want to focus on what you can do in place there. So control is not your primary expression of power, but you want to recreate or create, co-create with others, get people involved in what you're trying to do there. This was a process I put in place that when I was at HP and developed a workshop on operating across organizations. And it really embraces, it's really a mind map, if you will, that covers so many of the things that we've already talked about here. And again, you can get this from these slides or from my website. But the whole thing about how do you lead up, across, and down the organization, I've circled the key point: extra effort on relationships with people. You also need to speak truth to power. You have a process for being able to do it, where you can get her done, that you really realize what your strengths are. Everything that we've been talking about, you have a process that you can apply. There's a lot of patterns in place that might be important. And focus on relationships. People respond to your energy, your positive attitude, your enthusiasm, okay? Ask questions that really do engage other people. Use compelling evidence and a vivid language to describe the goals, not just a lot of jargon in place here, but have a crisp, concise, compelling vision statement, if you will. Explicit commitments, as we said, are in place there. When people know what's expected from them, you get better results. More value to others, you give them feedback, you have currencies of exchange, you have learning, you have fun. You have common cultural values. You leverage the difference, not view cultural differences as a liability, but really as an asset. Focus, where? Trust, being authentic, acting with integrity. What is the challenge? Feed yourself. It starts with you, okay? Your emotional quotient. I also have another assessment tool that you can look at it from that and keep learning and improving, okay? Tune into your essence. What is it that you like to do on your own that you can bring that into your work? Keep looking for best practices. Get extraordinary results. And oh yeah, put fun on the agenda. Projects should be fun, right? Okay, do it. Okay. Here's a way I've taken 4 of the skills and put them into some gears to illustrate what I mean by integrating. If you would really look at the way that each of those gears turn, if they all turn the way they should, you've got influence, negotiating, political, and sales skills, you can get integrated outcomes. If any one of these things goes in the opposite direction or stopped, the whole process stops. Okay, that's what I mean by integrating. On the left side, you're incomplete. The right side, you're more complete. Keep repeating the phrase, I am excellent. Understand what your mindset is. Okay, belief in your potential, make the commitment to lead up across and down the organization. Okay, if you believe, you can. You're ready to change, you keep developing. Does not necessarily, I can't guarantee that it always means you're going to be successful, but it does mean you are doing extraordinary things that you never thought you could. And sometimes the extraordinary things you developed in one project that didn't work out, you can apply it on another project and you keep advancing and developing. Place priority, which means your time, on people, the organization is an integrated part of a natural living system, subject to ambiguities, chaos, capable of bringing forces together into powerful outcomes. That's the rule I suggest. And rule number 2, when you get problems, see rule number 1. Okay. Are you ready? Okay. I'm hopeful I've introduced a number of things here for you. You know, do you want to be a POO or a business analyst, office of one? These are some things that you can embrace. Here's just another mind map to kind of summarize that a lot of things I've covered here today, being able to put them in place here. That your value, your characteristics, your challenge, and be ready to move on. Okay? So on the left side here, we start with the triple constraints of project management with the triangle. I'm overlaying that with 3 circles. We've talked about the environment, we've talked about sponsors, we've talked about project managers. Where all 3 come together is the green space. This is the sweet spot. This is the portal to achievement. I'm hopeful that all 3 of those circles can come closer together and the green spot gets bigger. This is what you can do. This is how you can lead up across and down the organization, is to use all of these skills, keep developing yourself, and get them in place here. Here's my contact information. I'd love to hear from you. You can go to my website where a lot of these tools and assessment tools and information is available. I even have some white papers. Here's my email. So if you have questions, I'd love to hear from you. We can see if you have any questions at the moment here. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So if you would like to be there, send me an invitation. Okay? So Susan, how are we doing? We got any questions at this point?
Someone is asking if they can have a copy of the slides, and we leave that up to Randy's discretion.
Yeah, send me an email, and I will send you a copy of the slides. Or if there's a specific one that you need to use, let me know that. I'd be delighted to share that with you.
Randy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Susan. I welcome this opportunity. Bye now.